We
Hi,
are
everyone.
live.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Here we are, and we haven't been live in probably 3 or 4 months. We've been busy working at the retreat, but we wanted to get back on and say hi to everyone and let you know that we're still here. We're teaching at the retreat now. Stephen and I also teach over
Skype or Zoom.
Oh, Zoom. I like
Michelle
Zoom.
likes Zoom.
I like
I
Zoom
actually
a lot.
prefer FaceTime. That works very well.
But you have to have, don't you?
You have to have an Apple thing.
An Apple thing.
Yeah, but it's more reliable than
I'm
Skype.
sure. I'm sure. And I think Zoom is more reliable than Skype, actually, and easy to use. So I said I think we would talk a little bit about what you guys are working on product-wise. Do you guys want to talk about that?
Well, why don't we do the questions?
You want to do the questions
Yep.
first? Okay. All right. I have a few questions here that have come up in the last couple weeks from students, either online students or students here at our retreat. And so I'm gonna read one right now. When you talk about the license to misbehave in your book, are you saying that alcohol doesn't make people aggressive or violent? I've seen plenty of bar fights, and I personally have been in a couple of my own. So
Yeah, me too.
So this is Steve's chapter, so we're gonna let Steve answer it.
Oh, all right. So, well, yeah, we are saying that alcohol, by its pharmacology, does not make people violent or aggressive. And we didn't invent this claim or this idea. We took it pretty straight from a book called Drunken Comportment.
Yeah,
great book.
Great book, legendary in the field of sociology, and still legendary in alcoholism studies. To this day, the NIAAA cites drunken comportment as the explanation for lowered inhibitions while drinking, right? This book is from 1969, and basically what the authors did is they went to ethnographers and different sociologists that went out and studied indigenous peoples or other sort of isolated groups and their drinking behaviors and customs, right? Because alcohol has been everywhere in the world. There was only like 2 places that did not, like one island in the South Pacific and then like the Inuit or something like that did not have alcohol. Everybody else has discovered alcohol, learned how to make it. And so they gathered this information from people that have been studying small groups for decades. And what they found out is that there is no uniform response to alcohol. There are places where people don't experience lowered inhibitions at all. And just so you know, the relationship between lowered inhibitions and aggressiveness is supposedly that alcohol takes down the inhibition and for you to, be aggressive towards other people, to fight people, to say things you wouldn't normally say
to hit on women.
To hit on women, yes. Yeah, exactly. To hit on men, if you feel uncomfortable doing that normally. Sorry.
it's okay.
It's funny. Not that being repressed is funny, but I just
yeah, we get it.
Okay.
I've been there, but
yeah.
no, but the idea is the alcohol somehow unleashes something, right? And what they found in Drunken Comportment is that no, it doesn't. There's places where people have no change in behavior when they drink. There's places where people have change in their sexual behavior, but not in violence and aggressiveness in that other way.
Right. They pick and choose.
They pick and choose, and what it conforms to is what happens to be acceptable in the society that we're speaking of, whatever that is. We provided what we thought were some of the best examples in the book, but if you don't understand this, the best thing to do would be to read Drunken Comportment. What's his name? Malcolm Gladwell cites it as one of the most important books ever written, one of the best that he's read.
It's really good.
It really is amazing, and it will give you just such a great understanding of what's really going on with substance use and the effects that we feel. So the fact is, though, like Michelle said, I've seen bar fights, or you've been in bar fights.
I personally.
I haven't. I've never gotten violent when drinking or taking drugs myself.
So, but that's because you didn't come from a culture that taught that, right?
Yeah, or I didn't care about it. I didn't want to be violent.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, that's exactly the point, though, right?
Yeah.
That's the point, that because you didn't interpret a buzz as lowering some sort of standard.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, it did. I would act goofy and say things, and I could talk to people. I could be more social, and so that's a lowering of inhibitions. Now, what was that about? And it's like, I'll tell you, like, the first thing I did was pot, and I would behave differently when I smoked pot. Now, on the one hand, it's that you don't have all your wits about you. I get that. With pot, you feel like very
a little
slow motion in the brain.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like, I had seen, like, you smoke pot and you're a weirdo, and so, like, I could be that when I smoke pot.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
that's because you learned that.
Because I learned it, because I saw, like, that's acceptable to be stoned, right? We had this idea of what being stoned is, and of course, that, if you looked at that, doesn't conform to reality at all either, right? If you're stoned, you're lazy, and you can't do crap. Well, they did studies down in Jamaica. They looked at people that cut sugarcane, and they compared the ones that were heavy pot smokers to the ones that didn't smoke pot. And there was no difference in their output, their productivity. They weren't lazy and unable to work.
Right.
They weren't, and they were smoking a lot, right?
Yeah.
So there's been studies like this, right? So what you think, we have this one vision, and really the idea that pot makes you into this worthless piece of garbage, that's propaganda.
Yeah.
That was created by anti-drug zealots. That's who that was created by. But it doesn't really turn out to be the case. I've said it before.
Right.
I have friends that smoke a lot of pot and do their jobs, which happen to be like comedy writing or something, like where an environment where that's lax, and that's okay to do some of that. Not all of them, certainly. I'm not trying to make a blanket statement, but I know some that do that, and so anyways,
the drugs don't do it. It doesn't pharmacologically lower inhibitions. It's an interpretation of the physical buzz that you experience. And that's dependent on whatever culture you're in, whatever subgroup of that culture you're in. For instance, in the group I grew up in, if you were drunk enough, we definitely fought. We fought a lot, and that was socially accepted. It was part of what you did when you were drunk. But being drunk didn't make you violent.
Yeah.
It didn't pull down the curtain of your feelings and make you, disinhibited to punch somebody in the face. I mean, it's just not reality. So pharmacologically, alcohol can't do that. It just can't.
And in the culture that I drank in was college, and women got drunk to be promiscuous.
Yeah.
That's what they did. And it was more acceptable to be promiscuous if you were a drunk.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like that was your excuse. I used to tell people also that it would shut down my filter. That.
Oh yeah, I have no filter.
I have no filter.
How convenient, right?
I can just say whatever I'm thinking.
I can tell you, we work together every day, and I know she's not drinking, but she has no filter. So
I don't, under normal circumstances.
You get older and you learn that you can just not have a filter by choice.
Yes, exactly.
And not care so much.
And just not care so much, So basically, now here's the thing, though. You may feel like, well, I take a drink and I do things I wouldn't normally do. The thing is, what you don't realize is you've been exposed to this idea your entire life.
That's right, since you were this big.
I always use the example of like when some of the messages that you get would, I always think of like the guy on TV when he loses his job and he goes into the bar and drinks, and somehow that he needs to get through losing his job by drinking, right? We're not talking about inhibition now, but think of that trope and how many times you've seen that in a movie or a television show where his wife leaves him, and that gets embedded in, And then when you have some big loss or
Right.
tragedy,
It becomes your social norm.
yeah, you feel like you got to have a drink. In the same way, we've seen that, oh, you're wild when you drink. And we've seen that it can get written off as, well, that was the alcohol talking, or the filter was taken away by the alcohol.
Right.
And we learn, and it's almost like subconscious, that when I'm drunk, when I'm drinking, I will be held to a different standard. So that activates a sense of empowerment to do what you want when you're under the influence.
Well, think about an old John Wayne movie, right? He's about to have the gunfight, and it's in just about every Western that was written
True.
prior to the 80s, right? And he's about to get in the gunfight. The first thing he does is the saloon doors. He goes in, can I have 3 shots of whiskey?
That's right.
He pounds the 3 shots, and then what does he do? He goes out and he gets in the gunfight. So
liquid courage.
yeah, and those in the culture I grew up in, that's where you learned how to fight.
Yeah.
Literally. So, but it's the point of this whole discussion is that alcohol doesn't pharmacologically change the content of your thoughts. So it doesn't change how you behave. You interpret a physical sensation, which is the buzz, in a way that you've learned, and that's the only point we're making.
And you just mentioned liquid courage, and I want to talk about an interpretation of this chapter in the book that keeps happening, and which is that people think that we wrote this chapter to, some people think that we wrote this chapter to bash them over the heads with, like, well, you were a jerk when you drank.
Right.
You're responsible for
Right.
all of that bad behavior, or you're responsible for cheating on your wife or your husband. And it's like, well, like, yeah, you kind of are, but that isn't our point. We don't care, right? Like, that is
There's
not
no judgment here.
that is not the point at all of the chapter. The point is, if you think you need liquid courage, see, this is a reason people are attracted to alcohol.
Yes.
And other drugs, right? They think that if I take this, it will make me this kind of superhuman, right? And you hear that especially about opioids all the time as well.
Yeah.
Like, oh, somebody just said it the other day, you feel like Superman when you take, I'm like, really? I don't remember
that way.
But
Somebody really dumb and sleepy.
Yeah, somebody literally just said that to me yesterday.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, so we're attracted to it for that reason. And what we want to show you is, like, it doesn't do that magical crap. It really isn't liquid courage. It doesn't make you superhuman. You don't need it. You can let go of that. So it's not about bashing you over past wrongs. It's about showing you where that sense of empowerment comes from, and it comes from the license to misbehave.
Right.
The cultural idea.
Well, I just want to clarify one thing too, because I talked to a lot of families about this exact thing, and there was some confusion there. That, like, I'll talk to, say, a wife, her husband's here at the retreat, and I'll talk to the wife, and I'll talk to her about this exact thing, that the alcohol didn't make this person this way. So when you talk to the person about a behavior that you don't want, and they've learned here, I say, he's learned here that alcohol doesn't make him cheat on you, or alcohol doesn't make him violent towards you. Make sure you're not blaming the alcohol either, because for families that becomes a really scary thing if somebody wants to try moderation, because in their head they're like, oh, he beats me when he drinks, and so now he's going to try to moderate. And I want to say, when you have the belief, like, when they come, you can't go backwards and say, alcohol didn't make you violent, so see, you're just a jerk. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, there's this cultural belief that alcohol makes this person violent. And we know that's true, because not only did he give himself a pass to be violent, but you gave him a pass to be violent because you blamed the alcohol.
Right.
So what we're saying is we want to take that reason, like, all of that out of there, and say,
what's going on?
And okay, maybe you want to try moderation, but know this: you will never get away with being violent again just because you're drinking.
Yeah.
Just don't give them a pass in the future. And then if you're addressing somebody that's drinking heavily, you don't say, because this is the mistake a lot of people make is they say, instead of saying, I don't want you to beat me, they say, stop drinking. When go to the thing that nobody can argue with, because a lot of people that are drinking, you know, and beating people don't want to stop drinking. So just say, okay, you don't have to stop drinking, but just the whole beating me thing has got to go. We're not going to put up with that shit anymore.
Address the problem.
Yeah, you're really opening a can of shit.
I so am. Because I have no filter.
We were just talking about this the other day about somebody that's like, you know, I don't think that guy wants to quit his drinking because, frankly, I don't think he has a drinking problem.
Right.
I think he has a womanizing preference. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Like it was a marriage that we were discussing, and a guy who drinks and seeks help with drinking, but drinking is mild. It's not really. It's the things that he does when he drinks.
That everybody's blaming the drinking.
We're blaming the alcohol, and like I hate to say this, well, you know, maybe it'll divert some people from coming to us, but like it ain't the alcohol, right? Like that's
right.
This guy doesn't have an alcohol problem. He wants something different than the monogamous marriage that he's in.
Right.
So, but it's a heck of a lot easier to say you got a drinking problem. Yeah, I got a drinking problem.
Yeah,
than to come around.
Distraction.
It's a distraction from the real issue, which is like, you know what? I want to be a playboy.
Right.
You know, and that means either divorce or have the wife be open relationship, one or the other. But like, or like we can keep up this thing where I keep drinking
it's
and blaming it on, it's a charade.
That's what we call.
But that's a whole other ball of wax.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So if you're dealing with a behavior you don't like, we're just saying maybe steer clear of blaming the substance and really address the behavior that you don't like directly, and then see where that gets you. So, all right, the next question. I have to look at the time. Okay, we're doing good. What do you mean when you say? Oh yeah. What do you mean when you say quitting is a 0-step process? You make it sound so simple, but I can tell you from experience, it's not.
It's not that simple because you believe that your drinking is attached to all kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and as long as you hold that belief, part of the issue when we say it's a 0-step process, meaning you can stop, you can moderate, you can make that choice at any point. First of all, it sounds dismissive, and we're not being dismissive. We're telling a fact that everybody, when they stops the same way, and that is they make the decision based on it's the happier option. Everybody, whether they go to AA, whether they go to NA, whether they don't, no matter what happens, whether they crash a car and the next day they make the decision, they're making the decision to stop based on this idea that, you know what, I'd be happier to stop. And now, it seems difficult because we actually wrote a book that's 400 pages long because we have to deconstruct all these ideas that are wrapped around drinking, all these ideas. And I can't go through all of them in a talk.
Right.
But we say it's a 0-step process because everybody who quits or moderates or makes those choices does it the same exact way at that point.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm happier moderating or I'm happier not drinking.
Well, they reach that point.
Yes. There might be a whole
and you may not,
stuff.
but you may not, the choice to stop maybe before you reach that point.
Yes. Yeah.
Usually.
Right? And so, this is where the freedom model is just so radically different because we put all of the emphasis on that choice, right? Now you would think it's a no-brainer. I should never drink again. I caused, I don't know, you could say I had a drunk driving accident, killed somebody. It's a no-brainer. I should never drink again.
Right.
So I'm never gonna drink again, you know, and I'm making the choice. It's like, well, on the one hand, yeah, you sort of are. Maybe you're not really convinced of it. Maybe you just feel like it's something you have to do.
Or you're supposed to do.
You're supposed to do. Your heart isn't on board, right? You know, it's like you've got this conclusion that seems rationally right, you know, but we're not robots.
Right.
And
You
we're not
know,
always rational.
you know, we're not always rational. Our desires come from an emotional place. Now, rationality is often involved, but you know, it's not enough to say that like makes rational sense. You're still going to be feeling this desire to use if you haven't arrived at that through real, you know, personal internal discovery, right? I don't know the best way to put that,
No,
right?
that's good.
You have to find it organically. You have to get there. And what each of us found is that just stopping for negative reasons was hard.
Yeah.
Just because you're supposed to. Go ahead.
Yeah, because it's a distraction to the question of why you actually like getting drunk. It's
Yeah.
funny because when I teach a student here at the retreat, we might spend, and Michelle, I know you've done this too, you might spend a week before your student says, you know, I guess I do like it. You know, they're so afraid
Yeah.
to say they like it because they've been taught by our culture that you shouldn't want to. You shouldn't want to like it. And they feel filled with shame. So what happens is when people can't admit that they like it and they're filled with shame, they focus on the shame, which is a horrendous distraction from the actual issue of why do you prefer it? Why do you like to get drunk and high?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm amazed, you know, at how difficult it is for people to say, yeah, I do like it at some level. Now, it can be various levels, right? It can be I just get high to avoid withdrawal, because not having withdrawal is better than having withdrawal, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Or you might still be at the stage where you really, really enjoy drinking. But once you can say, geez, I do choose to drink because I prefer it, then we can work on, well, maybe you could prefer moderation or abstinence more.
Mhm.
But getting to the spot that you just described, Steve,
Yeah.
of where you realize, I do like it, but I do want to change it, that's the key, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being honest about it.
So people will tell themselves, "Oh, I've made the choice, and I know I want to abstain," but really they still want to drink
And a lot
insanely.
of yeah, right, they want to
You know
drink
what I mean?
heavy.
So they
Yeah.
want to drink heavy
Because the
still,
preference is for intoxication.
you know.
Yes.
But so they're like, "Well, the answer's in the bag. Yeah, I should quit forever." And it really isn't. Your heart isn't going to follow along with that. You have to arrive there through a different process. That means throwing out the idea that I have to abstain, throwing out the idea that drinking is the best thing on earth, throwing out all these things and trying to go back to scratch a little bit and say, like, what does alcohol or whatever drug you're into really do, right? What is using it heavy like? What is using it moderately like? What would my life be like if I just, you know, took it out completely? You know, what are the benefits of each of these options? And as you analyze those things, if you really open your mind and you go through them differently, you might arrive at the place where you're like, damn it, anything would be better than drinking like this. And
You get there.
once you're there, I'm telling you, it's 0 step from there.
Yeah.
But we're talking all about a decision, sort of, it's hard to say decision making, but it's sort of a decision making process, right? Where you look at your options in a different way. The effort is mental. And it's like, once you know that anything would be better than drinking like this, and that's definitely how I felt about running around shooting up drugs all day.
Yep.
Anything would be better than that. Okay. You know, and there was no, after that, I didn't really feel like I had to spend any time stifling myself, resisting the desire to use. It was more of a focus of, you know, all right, doing any of those things that are, you know what I mean? It's just like moving on with
Moving
life.
on.
And, you know, it's hard to even say that without making it into a thing. Like doing other things. Like, no, I didn't have to do other things to not use. I wanted to do other things because this was no longer, because this was no, I knew this was no longer the thing, and that anything was better. But so you go through the decision-making process, and there's nothing, when you've really gotten there, and you're like, it's better, I'm happier, using less, or just not at all, you're totally free. There's nothing you have to do. You don't have
There's
you
no
don't have
recovery
work.
process.
There's no
work.
recovery.
There's no meetings. There's no.
Yeah.
It's
There's
just,
no maintaining it. There's no
there's
therapy.
no struggle.
You if you got another problem you want to get therapy for, go ahead. But it doesn't have to do anything with not using.
Yeah.
Once you know, like, you don't want to do that, you're happy you're not doing it, there you go. You can be miserable, but you're less miserable than you would be running around shooting up all day like I was. You know what I mean? Like, you have good times and bad. And so when we wrote that, I meant it to be a provocative statement.
Yep.
He really loved how provocative it was. It was like, yeah, go with it when I questioned it. But we also explained it in there, and like we compare it to like quitting a job. Like, yeah, it can be really hard to figure out, like, can I retire?
But once
is there
you
something
quit,
else?
you quit.
But once you quit, you quit.
Yeah.
Once you know, like, this, I'm no longer going to be here, I have better options, then boom, you're on your way. And that's what we're saying. That this is really hard for people to conceive of. We've been taught that there's this entity called addiction that takes a lot of work to overcome.
That it's about.
It's
a lifelong
battle.
And
Right.
it really doesn't have to be that.
Exactly. One more question. I'm just keeping track of the time here.
It's only been 26 minutes.
All right, we're kicking butt. All right, this one itself will probably take a half an hour. All right, alcohol has become the focal point of my life. It's how I get up in the morning and what puts me to bed at night. I know I don't have a disease and I want desperately to stop, but I have no idea where to start. And I want to qualify this one a little because I have some experience working with people that have this issue. And what happens is a couple things. One, there are a lot of people that don't believe they have a disease but think they need something outside of them to fix them.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah.
And so I specifically, like, where do I start? Because it does imply that this person thinks that they have something they can do to change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what do you guys think?
Well, I
Hey,
think
what was the question?
Go ahead.
Well, that alcohol, I don't know I don't have a disease. I want to stop, but I have no idea where to start. So this person clearly still loves getting drunk and be drinking all day long, and it's what gets them up in the morning. They drink from morning till they go to bed.
Well, here's the deal. There's a practicality about change that's very real. And after helping people for 30 years, one of the things I know is that sometimes people need a break. And we have two ways that we help people. Well, we have a lot of ways, but two main ways where we do one-on-one work with people. And one way is Skype private instruction over a computer, kind of like this.
Yeah.
And the other is at the retreat. And one of the things we've learned through doing all of this is some people just need to stop their life. So there's a practical, now not everybody can do this, but my point is, if that person asked me where to start, I'd say come to the retreat first so that you can think with a clear head. And go to a detox, right?
Yes, especially if you're a morning till night drinker, get evaluated for detox, absolutely.
So that we can have a conversation while you're thinking